And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, October 19th. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing
Excellent,
really
thank you.
well.
You guys sound
Fantastic.
so excited.
Doing really well.
Yay!
Well,
Feeling great.
We are without Zeb this week because he's busy
Getting drunk.
gallivanting around, talking about Linux and stuff. So, but before we go any further, can we get a confirmation from chat saying everything is good on the audio end levels? But we're gonna go on without Zeb, and I wish him the best of time meeting everybody and having a good time with all of the speakers and the conference and everything else. OggCamp, I'm sure it's a blast. All right. This week we decided we were going to try Netrunner as our distro challenge. Now, right after we picked Netrunner for the distro challenge, I was sent a message from somebody stating it basically was a blog post from Netrunner that they had put out and that I didn't realize was out there that said they basically discontinued the ISO of the rolling version of Netrunner that they had, which was based on Manjaro, due to the fact that it's pretty much so close now that it's just, you might as well just run Manjaro if you're going to run the rolling release. So they are concentrating solely on the Debian-based version. So that's what we decided to. We sent a frantic message out to everybody, try the Debian version. So that's what we did. I downloaded it, I installed it, and I got a few thoughts on it, but we're going to move on. I'll get in between as we go along. And I know that you didn't have nothing to do this week.
I was a little tied up with stuff. So I did not get a chance to try Netrunner. Other than I did watch Colin's video at one point. So, I mean, I guess that's something. But I do plan to try it this week. So it should be a little better week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because it was a busy week for a lot of people here. So, but it's completely understandable. All good. Nate, sir.
Yes.
How are you?
Great. You?
Did you
That's
get a
good.
chance to try Netrunner?
You know, I did. Now, I'm not done evaluating it yet. So this is my do you know like in Star Trek when it says, Captain's Log Supplemental, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That's kind of what this is going to be. So I'm going to be a quick and short. This is like where I'm at right now, and then I'll fill it, kind of conclude it next week. So right now, I will say the installation was easy. Calamari's installer. I did notice it took a lot of swap space. Like by default, it was like 8.5 gigabytes of swap just by default, with a 4 gigabytes of RAM assigned to it and a 60 gigabyte drive. That seemed a little bit odd, little on the high side, little heavy. A lot of games were installed by default, and one that I thought was kind of fun was Burger Space. Remember Burger Time from years long time ago? So Burger Space is like an open source re-implementation to it, but I couldn't climb down any of the ladders, so that was a problem. I couldn't finish, so I was just stuck on the top. But anyway, maybe it was me. Maybe I did something wrong. So I'll try it again. Kden Live was installed by default, so was Handbrake. No VLC, but SM Player. I'm kind of a fan of VLC. I know that some people don't like it, but it's kind of my jam dog. The webcam application Cheese, which is a GTK-based application, if I'm not mistaken. And it just seems odd that you do that and not a cute app. Have you ever heard of HookTube?
Yes.
No? Oh, okay. Well, it's like a stripped down YouTube. So you type whatever the URL is. If you type in HookTube instead, anyway, that was like an option, like a web option, and you could search through HookTube instead of using a regular YouTube. And then I just thought it was odd that it had WhatsApp in there by default. Do people still use that? Is that still a thing? WhatsApp?
I think it's a thing.
Anyway,
but
It's not a thing for me, but it's a
not
thing.
me.
Yeah, not a thing for me either. But anyway, so I mean, it worked very nice. I played around with it a little bit. I'm not done playing with it yet, but so far it's all right. The only thing that I don't actually like about it right now is the Netrunner themes are all essentially broken. Well, for me, because I like a dark theme. So if you try and go dark with any of the themes, like a Netrunner black, the text doesn't all show up. It makes up the Plasma application, some of them unusable, to include Plasma settings. And also, if I try and use the Netrunner theme and then just change the colors to be dark, same issue. Everything's it's unreadable. So if you like light themes, Netrunner is your bag, or just use the Breeze Dark theme and then you're fine. And then I don't know why I'd use Netrunner.
Now
But,
we have to have a
anyway,
conversation, Nate,
okay.
because we were talking earlier before the show started about the settings.
Yes, we
area
were.
of Plasma.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what you don't like about the settings in
All right.
Netrunner's version.
So when I had Plasma tweaks, and I'm like, what is this Plasma tweaks? Can you tell me what this? It was like GNOME tweaks, except I don't know. Just they didn't have to have tweaks there. They could have just gotten rid of that. Just had appearances or visuals or something. But Plasma tweaks, I don't know. I didn't like that.
Basically, what they've done is, and this I happen to love, is they have taken the settings area and everything that you need to change the look of your computer on Plasma, they have moved out of where it normally is in the settings area and put it in a section called Plasma Tweaks. It's not a separate program, still in the settings area. It's just under a different heading on Tweaks. Normally under Plasma, you have to go to 4 to 5 locations to get all of the tweaks done that are in one place in this settings panel, and I love it. I think
So
KDE ought to do that.
When I look at my my settings, I have appearances, and there's global themes, Plasma style, application style, colors, fonts, icons, cursors. So the way I see it, that already actually exists. They just called it Plasma tweaks as opposed to just saying appearance.
Well, under Plasma tweaks, say that again. What you have?
I have global theme.
Yep.
Which is they changed the name of that in 5.17. Plasma style, application style, colors, fonts, icons, cursors,
Splash screen and window decorations, widget style.
That's all.
And the GNOME application GK style.
So yep. Under.
So what I'm saying is it's all under one heading. So what I'm saying is, instead of going out to a different area in the settings and getting to, say, window decoration, you can get to the window decorations in the same location you can get to from your desktop theme, which I think is awesome.
So the splash screen, that's under startup and shutdown under workspace. But yeah, I can understand where you're coming from.
Nate, the other stuff that he mentioned is under applications in the appearance.
Yes.
So it is all in the same place except for that one thing.
Yeah. Window border, splash screen, and GNOME applications GTK style. Yep. So there you have it. There's what I think. I think Netrunner's doing well, and that is,
and I think
this is not like new to this version. They have done this,
right,
changing these. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
But I mean, so outside of that, the Netrunner theme specifically being broken, I mean, I really don't care if they have Plasma tweaks. I mean, it's just to me a little hokey, because like GNOME tweaks to me is super hokey, and it's just dumb. So that's why I don't like it, because I already have a visceral dislike for having a separate GNOME tweaks. So you have to go hunt and find that, and with the craziness that is the GNOME settings. So, but that so that's fine. But at least with Plasma, the Plasma tweaks is inside the settings. It's not some separate nonsense extension you have to install or whatever to make it usable. So yeah. So anyway, so that was my supplemental review. I'll let you know what I really think. I'll let you know about my ratings next week.
Nate, your reviews are always spot on. they're
I appreciate that.
They are. I mean, you find the best in everything, so that's really great. Well,
you have to. I mean, this is a it's a passion project of somebody. I'm not gonna trash it. That's just not appropriate at all. So no, we'll find the positives and draw them out, and I think we should celebrate the positives.
Yep. No, that's good. I will say a comment on the Calamares thing, or the installer. Obviously, they're using the full size hibernate, they call it, swap space. So that's why you got
Okay.
double your
Okay.
RAM is the amount of swap
Right.
space you get there.
Okay, that makes sense. With plus like a little extra in case you have something hanging out
Right.
and swap. That makes
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
Yep. So you can
That's a good
totally
call.
hibernate. Yeah. It's probably more
Okay.
useful for a laptop than a desktop, though. So I mean, there's that.
Probably. Right. Well, cool. Well, thanks for that.
You bet. Colin, I know you tried it. How about what sort of review do you have here?
Well, yes, I'm in Netrunner right now. So Zoom as a flat pack is working pretty well at the moment. There's a couple of little things I discovered in there. There's one called network drives. Now, I fumbled around in that on my video. I still haven't been, it's supposed to, I think it says that instead of mounting things through the FS tab, this is supposed to do that. I don't think I know how it works, so I've left it alone for now. So I might just continue to try and tweak with that a little bit. And there's another one called App Image Launcher. So I haven't really had a chance to look at that either. It says it manages your app images. So I really don't know what that's on. I'm assuming that it'll allow you to save your app images in a certain place or whatever. Haven't really messed around with that whatsoever. I've just sort of got it up and running, set it up the way I want it. And yeah, I noticed plasma tweaks. I wouldn't have known, to be honest, Rocco, if you said the plasma tweaks, because I don't really run plasma that often. But yeah, I think I just went to plasma tweaks and started messing around. Didn't realize it's different to the normal settings behavior. So yeah, that's not a bad idea, because at least it's got all the tweaking of your system in one spot, which is, when you think about it, is logical, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, Colin, from what Nate and Dave are saying, they have themselves moved some of these settings around in the recent versions of Plasma too.
Oh, okay.
Because they were all before in different spots.
Right. You mean as Netrunner specific you're talking about, or?
No, I'm saying Plasma itself.
Plasma
since
themselves.
I have used it on a regular basis, must have moved some of the settings, consolidated some of the settings in good place.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's not as bad as it used to be. I think Netrunner still does a better job at it, but it's getting there.
And Nate, what were you talking about? Themes? You're having problems with dark themes, is that right?
Correct.
Dark
If
theme?
I were to use
okay.
a dark theme, the text will all be broken. Like you can't read it because you have white background with white text on it.
All right.
You can try it if you like.
Yeah, I haven't tried dark themes yet. I'll have to give that a go. So I've installed.
Then you just have to guess.
Yeah, I've installed the Quokka one, but I kept it with the dark title bar, but everything else is light. So so far so good, running pretty well. I'm starting to sort of warm up to Plasma a little bit, I must say. And I was just trying while I'm on Plasma. I just installed Ferrin Next yesterday, and I like what he's doing with that too. So Plasma's shaping up pretty well. So they're the couple of things I've messed with in Netrunner. I like their screenshot tool, Spectacle. Is that the standard? Obviously, that's a standard that comes with Plasma, is it?
Yeah, that's the Plasma. Yep.
Yeah, I like the fact that I like the fact that you can right-click and capture current monitor, which is not very often in a lot of screenshot tools. Capture current monitor, so I like that, and it's got a few others as well. But so far, so good. I haven't really dived into it too much, but just one thing with Flatpak. In Discover, it said that the Flatpak backend was in there, but if you look in Synaptic, it actually isn't. I had to install the support for Flatpak through Synaptic. So I probably just did. It wasn't there by default because I was looking for Zoom Flatpaks and snaps, and it said Flat Snap backend or something when you search for it in Discover, but it's actually not there. It says it's got the remove button, but it was a little bit weird that that it wasn't showing up in Discover any of the snaps or flat packs. So I found that a little bit strange. I don't know why that is, but then I did a search for Discover. I think Plasma Discover or something in Synaptic, and yeah, sure enough, that support wasn't installed. So that's just probably my lack of knowledge, I would say, on Plasma Desktop. I think I don't know if that's normal behavior or not, but so far I'm enjoying it. So that's my experience at the moment.
All right, that's good. I watched your, like I said, I watched your video and I thought that was
Yep.
super helpful. So people should take a look at that. I think the information there is good. So
Yeah, if anyone looks down the show notes, I'll have an update to that Plasma Discover backend for Discover, because I didn't show that in the video because I didn't discover that until after I'd made the video. So
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Eric, did you Eric Adams? Yeah, you. Did you get a chance to try Netrunner?
I, same as Nate, I did a very cursory look, actually probably less than him. I'm going to be uncharacteristically unkind and just say that I was sort of thrown off by the whole red cursor, red motif thing. Yep. It's a very specialized look. And I'm just going to say that it was like an immediate kind of like, what is this? Like, I'm sorry. And I'm sure, I know you can change it, and I did, and I went around and played with some of the themes and stuff like that. But I'm a first impressions guy, always have been. And I just have to say that it was an immediate kind of like, wow. So that out of the way. It's Plasma. So, I'm felt at home from that perspective. Debian stable. I immediately sort of set that you can go in and I put this in the forum thread as well in Discourse. You can change to testing and get some fresher software. So I did that, and that changes it a little bit. You're still behind on Debian testing. So I'm going to reserve my judgment for some of the other things because I really didn't get much further than that. But the fact that Blue Systems is behind it, and the Blue Systems is one of the larger benefactors of the KDE Plasma project, there's definitely going to be some good stuff in there. I just need to get past that initial sort of surprise I had and go a little deeper. So
yeah, well, that's good stuff. Well, thanks.
All right, Tony.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go on.
Nope, just going to ask you how you were.
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Doing great. Are you settled in? You're good?
Just about, yes. I did download, but I had downloaded the rolling version based on Manjaro. I didn't realize they discontinued that, so I did have a brief look at it, but I think what I need to do is to download the Debian version and install and have a play with that this week, and hopefully I'll be able to report on that next week. Next.
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
I'm sorry, Tony. Dave, go ahead. So, okay, listen. So here's the magic that happens. This, I am the Great Oz, and what's happening behind the curtain, all the levers and stuff. So we've got a shared doc that we have a chat in. I've got YouTube chat, and I've got Zoom chat, and I've got Zoom, and so every week, and we've only done this for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm just not trying to embarrass anyone, but we try to do like a handoff so that if Rocco's doing something, he says, okay, Dan, why don't you call the next two. Every time they ask me to do it, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And then I immediately forget. And then, so that 10 seconds of silence, you can completely blame on me because they're waiting for me to do it. So there
well,
you
that's
go,
fantastic.
Yes,
that is fantastic.
That's the high quality production.
Can we edit
It's
that
okay.
out?
No, there's no editing.
There's no editing. We're just
You need a
fun,
way to
guys.
flash it up on his screen.
It's seriously like just take over my screen.
Right.
Anyway, Dave,
it's
sir.
live, so
Dave, very nice to see you. Did you get a chance to try Netrunner?
Yes, but only in a virtual box. I actually spent most of my time learning how to get KVM set up the way I want on the system, or close to how I want. I'm still working on the GPU pass through. But it was odd for me because, when it booted up, my first thought was, did KDE and GNOME have a kid? Not realizing that it was the dashboard menu that is one of the 3 standard in KDE. So that was a little out of my wheelhouse because I was just like, okay, I'll try and find where I'm going. But unlike Eric, I kind of like the red cursor. It made it much easier to see, to keep track of. I thought the theming, like out of the box was nice. I liked it. I explored a little bit, didn't get a chance to try and bring in some of the other stuff I want to do. So I want to actually throw it on hardware on my testing machine to do more. But it installed easily, like Nate said. It ran smoothly. I didn't have any issues with it. It did take 8 gigs of RAM for a swap, but I didn't realize that was anything odd because I assigned it 8 gigs of RAM in the virtual box. So I just assumed that it took what I assigned and matched it. Everything else was nice. I do want to get it on hardware and report back on that next week. But what I've seen so far, I can honestly say I probably won't stick with it because it's not a rolling release. But what I've seen of it is nice, and I would have no problem recommending it to somebody else who would need something more stable than Arch or OpenSUSE.
All right, fair enough. Mr. Kelly, I believe you have tested it.
Yes, I've done it both ways, virtual machine and real hardware. When I did the virtual machine, I noticed that it had the same installer that the Manjaro people used. And again, when I installed it, I got no swap partition. And then I had Derek Graham help me reinstall it in another virtual machine. And he showed me how to actually do a manual partition rather than using the express route. So we gave it some swap that way. Well, I played with it in the machine for a while and it seemed to be pretty appealing. I liked it. The colors are right and everything. So I went to install it on hardware. And I got it on the hardware. I put it on a hard drive. And what really was appealing to me right off the bat is it automatically brings up some things to work with for multiple monitors. Right off the bat, after you log in, you get a screen that helps you set up your monitors right away. And
what's your setup with monitors?
I have 2 of them, a right and a left.
Okay.
And it recognized that immediately. So that was pretty comforting that it welcomed me that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually when you go to a distro on hardware, you got to set up your monitors first so they don't drive you nuts. And then you got to go to your audio system and select your audio components and turn off the ones that you're not going to use. So I had the same issues with theming that Nate had. And I'm not going to, rehash what he said because my experience was quite similar. On top of me downloading additional themes through the system that had to download them. And they still didn't work right. And I had trouble with the mouse cursor. I couldn't get it to break away from the red theme. I mean, I'd switch it over to black and white, and on one monitor, it go poof right to red, and I go over the other monitor, it's black and white. So that kind of like drove me nuts. Another thing that I experienced with it was I picked this up right off the bat because it's unique to my hardware. Is I'm watching a YouTube video and all of a sudden I get this stutter in it. This is due to a fact that they installed something that they almost never use anymore. And I had wrote it down. It's a TSCHED equals 1 in the Pulse audio folder for the yeah, it's TSCHED equals 1. It's in the Pulse audio default folder in the ECT Pulse / default. And I'm familiar with this because it has to do with the Pulse audio sequencer. When it's selected to 0, when you do equals 0, it turns it into an interrupt base type system. The sequencer actually goes and interrupts the system to use the audio. And I'm getting this information from what I gathered on the internet trying to learn about it.
Sure.
If you set it to 1, it's like you didn't even put it in there, and you put it on an end of a string. It goes in that folder and it goes on the end of a string. The string is load module equals loop back.
So you would say
load module space module equals u device equals detect, and then you put that string at the end of it with a space.
So that fixed the stuttering for you then?
That's because it was stuttering, as that's in place. It's a side effect of using that workaround.
Okay.
Because with that workaround in place, it fixes the Discord audio problems, the Mumble audio problems, and the Skype problems.
Wow.
So this is a side effect of fixing all that stuff. You get this.
Would you do me a favor and post that in Discourse at some point this week?
I can do that, or put it in a Zoom chat, or
that just sounds like something that would be handy to have to fall back to at some point if someone was having that issue, if they had that documented somewhere.
This is something they used a long time ago, and then they decided to take that little equal string out and run it on the interrupt mode. But they left it so you could install this if you ran into problems. And it is I know it's unique to my hardware. Other people may not have this problem with their hardware.
Oh, okay.
And you got similar hardware to I do, so it might happen to you. And what happens is, if you don't have this in place, your Mumble will start getting scratchy sound. If you have a video player open with Mumble or Discord, the audio will become out of sync with the video. You get these weird side effects. Then you put the string in equals 0, and it fixes all that, but you get the stuttering every now and then the video. And depending on your hardware, it may be every 15 minutes, it may be every half hour. It's not real bad.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's great. Did you find anything else worth mentioning?
Okay, we talked about the swap, and when I put it on hardware, it gave me a 17 gig swap partition right off the bat. So the installer somehow knew that I was using it on VM, and it is probably because I'm using older VirtualBox stuff. When I got this thing fired up on the hardware, it used about 600 megabytes of running space without anything open. So that's about what it idles at with nothing being used. When I installed it, the installer only gave me the option to put in one password. It didn't give me the option to put in a root password. So it gives you your user password is your root password, as I discovered using the machine. So when I wanted to update or anything and you had to authorize something, you'd use your user password. And that was kind of weird, I thought. The tweaks in it, the audio system tweaks are very good in the audio section of the settings. I found them to be really appealing. There's a lot of stuff to adjust your audio and stuff in the settings that's different from all the other distros we've looked at. The drop-down terminal, now that's I have a little bit of a beef with, because it puts it on the wrong monitor. And I'm trying to get it on the other monitor. It doesn't move, you know.
Was your mouse on that monitor by any chance? Because I noticed that if my mouse is on my second monitor and I hit the key, it always wants to sort of go to that monitor. So maybe
No,
that...
it's particularly happy to use the primary selected monitor.
Okay.
It don't want to move away from that. So, I would have been happy with a terminal that I could just open and move it anywhere I want.
So what would you say all in all then, just sort of looking at your time with it? I mean, you're like 30-second kind of like,
well, for those that aren't using it, the updater, go find that right away, because you have to turn some stuff on it to get some updates. You got to go in there and click some stuff to actually search for the updates and notify you. In the updater, there's like a box for that. And then you get the little shield down at the bottom on the panel. So anyone that hasn't tried that and wants updates, seek that out and get that set up. But my overall experience with it, this is like my first time using a later version of KDE. It's more than I need. It is a lot. It looks like someone put a lot of work in it, especially to get it to run on as little RAM as it does. It needs a little polishing work in the theme department. Other than that, it's pretty decent distro, especially being Debian based. And I've been using Debian for quite a while now, so I know all the little ins, outs, folders, files, hacks, fixes. And like the one thing I was telling you about, I picked up on that right away when my YouTube videos stuttered. I knew right what they did.
Well, that's knowing your hardware, that's for sure.
Well, this is the only distro that put that in by default. None of the others we've tested have had that put in by default.
Might be worth reporting to them. Could be the type of thing they just haven't tested because they don't have that hardware. I know that happens.
They probably tested it and came across a piece of hardware that did do the Discord, the Mumble, and the Skype audio flaws, and thought it'd be better to put that in, and people could just deal with the YouTube videos or whatever, your Netflix stuttering every half hour. It's not real bad.
Well, Dan,
if you
please,
know what you was,
like Eric said, post that in the discourse, please, so that other people can benefit from you finding that.
I got it, I believe, from the Arch Wiki.
All right. Well, you post that up, and hopefully it'll help some people out there.
We're in Discord. Would you like me to post?
In Discourse, not in Discord.
Oh, I don't use Discourse, so I...
Okay, don't worry about it then. It's okay.
All right. Eris, sir.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Did you try Netrunner?
Yeah, I tried that, and I tried the rolling one. I used it before I think they made the announcement. The Debian one seemed fine. I didn't really like the boxy icons. But everything seemed fine. So I went on to the rolling, and then I updated like for 2.5 gigs, I think, of updates. And once I finished installing it and updating it, it wouldn't save my display settings. I don't know what that was about. I tried to disable my laptop monitor and just use my external monitor, and it would never save that. I would reboot, and it would just go back to default, showing both. So I don't know what that was about. But I guess now it's discontinued. So after that, I went on to testing the new Ubuntu's.
Yes. I know that. See, when we picked Netrunner last week, I know there were people that wanted to try the Ubuntu. There were reasons behind that. We will get to them.
Yeah.
All right, Derek, sir.
How are you doing? I actually haven't had a chance to test it yet, so nothing from me.
All right, Vash. Vash, are you there, sir? All right, moving on. Bill?
Sorry about that.
Oh, all right. Go ahead, Vash.
There's Vash.
I was going to say I haven't really checked out Netrunner. I've been working on other challenges, and including Rocco's favorite low latency kernel stuff. So that's been interesting.
Good man.
Excellent.
As long as you do it with a single click.
Vash and I have been having like this long back channel discussion about low latency kernels and Jack and all kinds of fun stuff. Don't worry, we'll bring you guys in. You'll love it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
I need coffee for that.
Bill,
Eric, I sent you a private link in the Zoom chat for the website that explains that problem.
Okay, great. I'll add it. Thanks, Dan.
Bill, are you there? No, Bill. No. Vince.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Oh, there's Bill. Bill, I know you were busy this week. I know it. Did you have a chance to try Netrunner?
No, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. That's cool. Vince.
Hi guys, how's my audio?
Oh, you sound
It's a little
good.
low. It's a
a little low, but you sound good.
Bring the mic a bit closer.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's Sunday morning here, and it seems like every single neighbor is deciding to mow their lawn. So I hope you can't hear that.
No, I can't hear any lawn mowing.
I just wanted to touch on what Colin was saying before about the disk mounter. I've been learning a little bit about KDE, and from what I've learned, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is when you browse to a network drive in Dolphin, it doesn't actually mount that drive in your file system like a lot of other file managers or DE does. Is that correct? Yeah, so I think that's what that drive mounter is maybe addressing, that if you're needing network drives, because it's fine if you're using a native KDE app and you're trying to open a file from that app, it'll find the network drive. But if you're using it, you're trying to open a file from a non-KDE native app like, I don't know, like LibreOffice or something like that, unless you have the drive mounted, you can't access that file on the network drive. Am I correct in understanding it that way?
Yeah, what you're saying makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's what that application is supposed to address. But back to my look at Netrunner, I actually thought that the theming was rather nice as well. It's one of the few occasions where I've booted something up and I didn't feel the immediate need to want to change any of the theming. One of the little annoyances was that I found there was no workspace switcher on the taskbar just by default. So I added that. And something that I've also been finding with KDE is that it's not very good with respecting settings that you've saved. So, for example, on my testing laptop that I have, whenever I booted up, it would always default to full brightness, even if I turn the brightness down, and even if I clicked off that little setting in the Power Manager that says for screen brightness, because I think that's supposed to automatically set it. Whenever I rebooted it, it kept opening up my laptop to full brightness. That's fine during the daytime, but at nighttime, if I'm using it, I get this blinding wall of light. So that's sometimes not fun. And in comparison, because we've recently just been testing out, I've just tested out Manjaro KDE lately. That has no problems with keeping your settings between reboots. So I'm not quite sure if there's something going on in the background there that keeps resetting those options. Overall, I thought that Netrunner has a very impressive suite of apps out of the box. I think it's got a very nice broad range of apps, and I really couldn't think of much else that the average user would really need. And that's almost even to a fault as well, because they include in the multimedia section Handbrake and Kdenlive. I'm not quite sure if many average users, it depends how you define them, would be doing a whole lot of video editing. I guess some might. And I suppose if Windows felt the wisdom of including Movie Maker in there at one point in time, I suppose this makes sense as well. Someone's touched on the web app links that are included. I think that's okay if there wasn't a native application, a native client for those web apps. But for something like Telegram, seeing the link in the menu there, thinking that it's a Telegram app, but it actually wasn't. It actually took you to the Telegram web application. I thought that was a bit, when I first found that out, I thought I was a bit disappointed. And on that also, with Skype, if you open the menu and type Skype in, there's actually 2 entries. So one of them is the native application, which is installed, and the second one is the web application. But then if you open the web application, it actually isn't supported by Firefox. So I thought that was a bit of a strange inclusion for it
Does
to
it
actually be working.
differentiate it in the menu?
I think it does. I think it does from memory, but there's still 2 entries there. And with Firefox, I think that brings me to a point of them using the ESR release. Now, I've always found the ESR release a little bit sluggish. So, for example, I was in a YouTube stream chat once, and I can't remember whose it was, but it was really slow when I was trying to type things. And I'm thinking with Firefox 69, I think they're up to now, with it being, I think, so stable and so and there being so much improvements in speed, I'm not quite sure including the ESR release is that wise, unless you have a specific use case for needing the ESR, I suppose.
It comes with Buster.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it's
Right.
defaulted with Buster.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, I'd probably say, well, one other thing was that whenever you go to the menu and reboot and shut down, there's actually no confirmation before it does that. So if you're on, say, for example, a laptop and you have a touchpad and you open up the menu and you accidentally just go past one of the reboot or shutdown buttons and you accidentally tap with a touchpad, which is very easy to do, you've got no warning. It will just shut down or reboot. So I kind of prefer that there's some sort of warning before they do that. And one last thing is the best feature of this distro is probably that they include double click by default.
Wow. So wrong. So wrong. But before we go any further, I do want to point out that did you make a video on YouTube?
Sorry, I wasn't sure. I didn't realize you were going to bring that up.
Yes.
Caught me by surprise. I did. It was actually the idea was inspired. I've been playing around with a few different ideas, but the idea was finally inspired by I was watching one of Steve's very own streams, and I think he was testing out Manjaro on his laptop, but he was remarking that he was having trouble remembering which keyboard and mouse to use because he was streaming from his desktop and then using the Manjaro on his laptop and using some OBS plugin to show the screen. And I thought to myself, I know the solution to this because that's something I've used a long time ago, but also I still use today. And it's a KVM app where you can actually control 2 computers with one a set of monitor and mouse. And I've seen some other little tutorials and videos around going around the place, but they weren't very clear about how to set it up. So, and there are some intricacies to setting it up. So I thought I'd just put something out there, see if it helps anyone. It's great for anyone who distro hops and has a testing machine next to them on their desk, I reckon, so that you can actually still control 2 or more machines without moving your hand off your mouse and keyboard. So anyway, but don't expect necessarily that I'm going to make more content because time permitting.
We will have to encourage you on or harass you until you do one or the other.
Vince, just remember, it's not quantity, it's quality. That's what it's all
Okay.
about. So.
I'll take that into account.
All right, well, thanks for that. Congratulations. We've linked to it in the chat, so now we're all going to come,
Oh,
already subscribed.
Everybody subscribe to Vince's channel.
Already
now.
done.
Yeah. I didn't think of a better name now for a channel now.
We all know where you are now. Nowhere to hide. Mr. Chris, good to see you, sir. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Running a little late, but catching up with things.
That's okay. Did you get a chance to look at Netrunner this week?
Yeah, I was. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that they had dropped the support for the Arch version. I'm running that right now, and to tell you the truth, I like it. The thing I kind of liked about that was it shows the diversity of plasma and how you can set up KDE to do some kind of neat things. I like how they had that set up. The calamari bug that I keep harping on that I posted in Telegram this week. Apparently, I'm not the only one that's having that problem. So, yeah, the thing with the file, setting up the file structure. When you manually do it, you have to go in, do it through fdisk or gparted from the command line. But maybe they'll fix it one of these days. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's just more fun for me. Far as I was able to get everything that I normally installed. It's working fine. I have not really had a whole lot of problems with it. The only problems I have had with it is due to the APC problems on the BIOS of my laptop. But that's until I actually loosen the wallet up a little bit and buy a new machine. That's what I'm going to be dealing with. But so I'm not really blaming Netrunner for that. And what I'll have to do now is I'll have to download the main version and have that ready for next week, I guess. So other than that, that's really about all I had to say about it.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Paul, hello, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Did you get a chance to take a look at Netrunner?
Let me get my notes out here.
He's prepared. Oh, look at this page
running
after page.
list.
Paul, you're a little bit low, brother.
I didn't try it.
He didn't try it.
Oh, I see how it is. Okay.
He needed a note to remind himself that he didn't try it.
It says no right here.
All right.
That was a blank sheet of paper.
Adam, sir,
Hey.
what's going on?
Not a whole lot. I didn't check out Netrunner. No one's surprised, but I've been having my own existential crisis and recovery. So,
And we might
all
just get into talking about that
We might.
crisis. So
we might.
there you go. Barb.
I didn't get a chance to try it, so hopefully maybe next week.
All right. That's okay. Like I said, this is the distro challenge is not a mandatory thing. So
Right.
if you don't want to try it out, you don't have to. This is just because we do it for fun. And number two, this week has been such a busy week. People not only trying out Ubuntu, but a lot of people here help out testing Ubuntu and the Ubuntus. So it's been a really busy week. So I didn't expect a ton of people to take a look at Netrunner.
Rocco,
Yep.
some people are also actually developers and members of councils of particular distributions.
Yep.
That's Dan, by the way. Congratulations.
Wait, what? Say that again?
So Dan has been elevated to a member of the Ubuntu Council.
Really?
Yes,
Dan,
I'm sorry.
when were you going to tell us that?
I wasn't.
We know where to
awesome,
send
dude.
those bug reports now.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Dude, you put in a ton of effort into Ubuntu, so that's well deserved.
So just to congratulate Dan again, but to echo what Rocco said, I saw the channel and Dan busted his butt this week. So congratulations, Dan, and you did a heck of a job. Your whole team did a heck of a job.
Yep.
Thanks, Bill. There was a lot of last minute stuff going on for sure, as you know, and Mate was pretty active as well. So, yeah, last minute things, lots of last minute bugs, and a couple of people here reported them, and maybe saved the day for a couple of distributions.
Yep. There were many stories like that going around. So,
And Rocco, one more time, and I just echo that. We talk about, and Popey's not on here to say enter bug reports, but Adam put a very important bug report in this week, and lots of people I know in this, at least Dan saw it, I saw it, and a lot of other people saw it. And it got
what did he
fixed.
put in, Bill? Tell us.
There is an issue with NVIDIA and Steam, and obviously that's very big for game playing. And there was, there were a couple spins based because it was pretty close to it, and it was a release candidate final, and the NVIDIA i386 libraries weren't getting loaded. And Adam reported the bug, and it got elevated up the chain pretty quick, and those libraries are now included in the NVIDIA driver.
And that is what it's all about.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of days, it right before release, it really saved it. And Bill found one too that was causing a boot up delay, and that was right at the last minute as well. And a lot of people would have noticed that for sure. So spot on for finding those.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, look, the second hour is always open to topics, so we can easily bring these topics up if you want to talk about it. We do have some things we need to discuss, but basically that is our take on Netrunner this week. We will be testing it for another week, and we'll report back next week what our final thoughts on it are. If you want to get into testing Netrunner with us, join us in the Telegram group, and we'll get you started.
Rocco, I have a complaint.
Do it.
Zoom won't let me change Dan's name.
Why?
Oh, that's terrible.
I was going to change it to like Councilman Simmons, you know?
Wait, I can change his name, can I?
I'm sure you can.
Okay, so before we go any further, I would like to thank my man Adam Grubbs, who's in the Zoom chat here. So this week I kind of like decided I was definitely going to try DaVinci Resolve. Definitely going to not move away from Kden Live, but give another one a definite go and sit down and learn it. I decided on DaVinci Resolve after talking with Jill on the Linux Spotlight episode. If you haven't seen it, it was and I had some trouble actually. So I got done early on Friday, and I think I was home by like 2:30, 3 o'clock. I was sitting down at my computer, which is very, very unusual for Friday. And I figured, okay, I'm going to spend a few hours watching tutorials and learning DaVinci Resolve. And I think we got done talking. Was it midnight, Adam, that we got done talking?
Yeah, it was pretty late.
All of the time in between, Adam jumped on Discord with me right around 3 o'clock, and we worked on these issues that I was having with DaVinci Resolve. It wasn't sound, it wasn't playing videos. We had to, it has certain formats that it supports, certain codecs it supports and doesn't support. And he worked most of those hours with me in the terminal fixing DaVinci Resolve and also fixing Steam that I was having an issue with. So I want to thank you, man. That was above and beyond.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's all good.
Yeah, it was pretty.
I do it for a living, so you know.
Well, okay, so there you go. You do it for a living, but you don't need to do it when you go home.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. So before we go any further, we have to get in the top 5 podcast conversation, because otherwise we're going to be pushed. It'll be pushed to the end, and then we won't get it in. So for weeks now, I think 3 or 4 weeks now, I've been talking, or I had suggested that we list out our 5 favorite podcasts. They don't have to be Linux related. Just have to be, a favorite podcast of yours. And so starting off, Barb, you were really into this topic. Why don't you start it off?
Okay. I think I'm going to mention ones that are not Linux, because I think we all have a lot of the same ones, is probably what people are going to say. I enjoy listening to true crime. Maybe you guys might be surprised at that, but then there are 2 that I really, really like. One is called Generation Y, or Gen Y, and they take some known, well-known cases and some not, and they go back through everything about it, and they discuss it. Another one is, and I didn't realize that in the UK they had as many wackadoodle people as we have here. It's called, yeah, because it's called They Walk Among Us, and it's for UK murders and stuff only, which really surprised me because I really didn't think they were as wacky as we are when it comes to strange murders. And both of those are really, really good. And then I have one more. It's kind of true crime. It is true crime, but it's not necessarily murder. It's called Cults, and it's about some of these cults I've never even heard of, and some of them are very, very well known. And that's interesting if you want to know, like, kind of learn a little bit of the psychology of like fringe people. I mean, these guys are really fringe people. Some of the cults. And of course, my other favorite one is Star Talk Radio. Neil deGrasse Tyson. You do not have to be a science geek to like it. In fact, he tries to make it so that anyone can understand it.
All right. So, Barb, do you have a favorite one out of them, all of them?
Out of all of them? Probably Star Talk.
Star Talk.
If that helps.
All right. Dan, do you have any podcasts that you listen to that you like?
I do. Actually, I got to make a comment on Barb's first, though. You may want to check out a podcast I found a while ago that I'm not sure if it's still running or not, but it was called Crime Town, and that was really good.
I think I've come across it. I will check that out. Crime Town.
Yep, if it fits your genre, that's
Yes,
for sure.
yeah, it probably does. I've been into true crime since I was like 8 years old. So.
Yep, cool. So yeah, I'll give you my top five. So I listen to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. I'm not sure if anybody else here listens to that. That's pretty good stuff. Almost daily, I listen to another one that's called the Sans Internet Stormcast. They talk about kind of top vulnerability things that are going about. It's a pretty short one. It's only about 5 minutes long or so, typically, but that's pretty good stuff. I listen to the Ubuntu podcast and Linux for Everyone. I'm sure we all have listened to that one once or twice. And I'll throw Linux Spotlight on my list. I usually watch that in video, but I also listen to it in podcast format.
There you go. So we have to, Barb, if you have links to those, if you can put them in the Zoom chat, what we can do is we can put a list together of everybody's.
Yeah.
So
I know I got all mine off of iTunes. So they're all on iTunes.
Right.
And then they're on everything else. But
right.
You mean like if they have a website?
Well, no, even if you just list out the 5 names, we can put it in a document and then we will like make a master list.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, Eric.
So most of mine are what you'd expect. The the Ubuntu podcasts, Linux for Everyone, Destination Linux. I like Linux Lads, Mintcast, basically all the Linux ones. There's a really good one, Cubicle Nate's Noodlings. Excellent.
Yes.
Nice and short.
It is very good.
It is, honestly. I'm not even just being like a goober about it. Like he does a really good job and it's very quick. So here's my beef with podcasts in general. People have got to stop making them 2 hours long. You just do. Please. Even if you're listening to it, like I use the Antenna Pod on my phone, and it has a feature where you can cut silence. So at least that sort of cuts out some. But I have a hard time listening to it faster because I actually want to understand what the people are saying and keep the context. So I know a lot of people say, "Oh, just listen to it at 1.5 speed or whatever," but you're kind of killing it by doing that. So anyway, just saying.
No, I agree, dude. I don't like listening to it at faster speeds because it takes away from it. Sure, you get the information, but you're not relating to the person because you can't relate to somebody when they're talking at that speed.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing? People watch it in 1.5 speed?
Oh yeah, a lot of people who listen to
yeah.
podcasts a lot or do it at 1.5. Sometimes I think Michael listens to his at 2.
Yeah,
something like that. It's ridiculous.
I can't comprehend. I do 1.3 is the fastest I can go.
But it changes the sound of the person and the people, and then I personally have a hard time relating to that when I listen to that. But go ahead, Eric.
I have trouble keeping up with normal speed.
No, I do too, Colin, and that's the thing. So I want to listen and I want to hear what people are saying, but ultimately I'm trying to also do other things because I don't have just blocks of hours of time to sit. So if it's short, and I know there's a lot you try to cover, but my recommendation to folks is to just be careful and critical and cut some of it back. Anyway, so non-Linux stuff, there's one that my wife found. It's called The Dream, and it's about just like American capitalism. And their first season was all about multi-level marketing companies. And I could not stop listening to it. They had like 20 episodes and I just mowed through it because it was so compelling. Very much in the style of like, This American Life, that kind of like storytelling, but it's all about just how, MLMs have managed to skirt regulation and just how the politics behind it. It's really, to me at least, it's very interesting. So I mentioned This American Life. There's one called Risk, which is all that like sort of storytelling about personal embarrassing things that happen to you in your life. So I like all this human interest sort of stuff like that. And then there's one that my daughter loves, which is called Wow in the World. And it's just a goofy kids podcast. And I listen to it with her in the car all the time and we laugh because it's funny. So there we go.
Well, I get what you're saying about the whole 2 hours thing. So we're just going to have to cut Biddle off.
Oh, but I will say, so Linux Spotlight, Dan, you mentioned listening to it. I don't watch it very often on YouTube. I listen to it because I find it's almost distracting to watch. I like when I can hear it and just listen to it, I can actually I absorb it better, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's why I do both.
Sitting in front of my computer or watching something on a screen means that I have to be holding it. Versus this, I can just leave and listen and do other things. So,
yeah,
I think live stream is different because you're interacting, so that's not too bad, no matter how long it goes for, and you can jump on and off whenever you like. But sitting down watching a video or a tutorial or information-wise, I think 2 hours is quite a long time, isn't it?
Yep. Hey, look, it is, and I even debate with Linux Spotlight. Originally, I wanted to keep. It's funny. Adam ribs me all the time because I told him he was like the second episode. We want to try to keep it to an hour, and it's like that was the original intent, to try to keep Linux Spotlight to an hour. But where do you? I mean, how do you stop a great conversation going?
Nah,
and
I think
I just, you know what I mean. So I just let it go.
Yeah, but it's more natural that way.
Yeah,
it doesn't look made up.
I mean, that's not a podcast in the sense that it's I mean, you're following a format, but to me, Linux Spotlight is more important almost as you give the person the time to explain. I mean, it is an audio version of something, but I think that show exists outside of that sort of structure of podcast.
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Because you're getting.
Go ahead, Colin.
I was just going to say, you're getting to know the person in the Linux Spotlight, so that's. I think it's a bit different. I mean, if you're looking at tutorials and things like that, and you got a lot of, I'm very conscious when I make my videos because, the uncut version could be anywhere up to an hour and a half.
Yep.
And you got to try and cut that down to like a half an hour at least, because people are going to get bored with it. You don't want any pauses in between. You just want the information to sort of flow if you can, because I think it piques people's interest. So that's the way I look at it anyway. So,
All right, Nate, you got some favorite podcasts?
I do. In fact, I have a lot of podcasts. It's hard to crunch into 5. So what I'm going to do is, if there is a video version of it, I'm throwing them off my list because those are givens, like Destination Linux and This Week in Linux. Those are videos, so I'm not going to talk about those. So the ones that I like are the Ubuntu podcast. I really enjoy that, even though I don't really use Ubuntu. I like that. I like that podcast a lot. Linux for Everyone, Ask Noah Show, Tea Earl Grey Hot. Have you heard that one?
Yep. That's with Yannick.
Yannick, and yeah, and so I really enjoy that. In fact, I've commented, I think, on almost everyone on their website. I think I'm the only one that has, because I'm really like almost obsessed with that podcast right now. And then another podcast I listen to, which is very different from the rest. It's called Disgruntled Moms. And actually, my sister is in that podcast, and so it's and I know some of the people in there, but I can kind of relate. I'm not a mom, but I do a lot of mom things. So so I find it amusing and fun to listen to, because sometimes I feel like I'm a disgruntled mom. But anyway, so that's my list.
Cool. That's a neat list. Tony, you got a list of podcasts for us?
I'm afraid I don't do podcasts.
Oh, okay. That's
Fair
cool.
enough.
I just don't have enough time. What with watching this and doing the spotlight and all the other Linuxy stuff, and I prefer to watch the videos to see people's reactions rather than just listen to it, that I decided not to bother with podcasts some time ago and just stick with this. Next.
All right, I think Dan froze maybe. All right. Dave?
My favorite would have to be Security Now with Steve Gibson. It is like 2 hours long, but there's a lot of good information in it.
But wait now, Dave, there is something to say for it's not like we want to throw out 2 hour long, because I mean, for people that have the time, they're great.
Oh, he would love to have it shorter. He's just like trying to whittle down all the security mishaps from the last week into a mere 2 hours. So actually my second one is the guy who does Smarter Every Day, who's an honest to God rocket scientist in Tennessee, I think it is, or Alabama, one of those states, somehow met and became friends with a pastor from the Montana, Idaho way, the guy who does the 10-minute Bible hour. And they get together over phone calls and occasionally in person and just have conversations in a podcast called No Dumb Questions, which is really thought-provoking and insightful. And I really like that. For the lighter side, I like a podcast called Grumpy Old Geeks, which is two guys who discuss what went wrong with the internet and who's to blame. For my daily updates, I usually listen to the Cyberwire, and then the general, conversation ones of Bad Voltage, User Error, Linux Lads, and those.
All right, dig it. I have Linux Lads on mine.
I got hooked on them. I love listening to them. I feel every time I listen to one of theirs, I feel like I'm sitting in a pub drinking with them.
Me too. Yeah, I really like that. That is a great podcast. And Mintcast, I think, has that same sort of vibe to it, where it's just a bunch of, it's almost like this. It's just a bunch of guys getting together, well, people getting together and talking. Dan, I know earlier we talked and you said you don't do the podcast, do you?
Well, not really, but if you want to include the YouTube types, I do get around to a lot of those.
Okay.
Like, I really like Rocco's Spotlight. I'm like up at Wednesday morning waiting for him to throw that out so I can watch it.
No pressure, Rocco.
I'm a fan of that show. I also like the EB, Zeb, and Garth and you thing they do on Wednesday. That's pretty comical.
Yep.
So, and I do watch some of Tuck's digital stuff. He does a really good news review and stuff like that. I do watch some of the Destination Linux. Most of the Linux stuff, I get around to watch that. But I'm kind of late to the game when the whole podcast thing started, because I was working. I had a vehicle with no phone connection to the radio. So I was listening to radio talk shows most of the time, which probably sucked up the time where I could have used a podcast.
So Dan, but you bring up a really good point. a lot of people who are making podcasts will also put them up on YouTube because some people prefer to watch or just consume it that way, whether or not. So, like, for example, Jason Evangelo just put Linux for Everyone up as a YouTube video. It's just the audio and then a waveform. But, you know, he has an audience there as well because people prefer YouTube for whatever reason. So you're not consuming those as a podcast on an app, but you're getting the same content through YouTube. So it's a fair point, you know?
Yeah, I got it running all on the same device here, so I can do my paperwork and stuff and listen, even though I'm not watching.
Right.
For
exactly.
something like Tux Digital or Destination Linux, that works out great on that situation. For Rocco's shows, I want to watch those.
Exactly.
For some reason, they're appealing. So is the AB, Garth, and Zev, and you got to watch that. I mean, it's just good UK fun.
Okay.
As far as getting up from this computer and stuff like that, I'll go put on a hot vinyl record to clean the house or something like that, something to get me motivated.
What do you listen to, Dan?
It ranges from all kinds of stuff. It could be Fleetwood Mac, it could be Bob Seger, it could be Led Zeppelin, it could be the Beatles.
There's Dan vacuuming and
stuff.
dusting to Led Zeppelin. Yep.
Yeah. Dazed and confused.
If that ain't motivation, what is?
Well, I just picture him, you know, a whole lot of loving going on, you know, on the just going back and forth with the vacuum.
I also do some Def Leppard and
there you go.
You know, Ozzy Osbourne. I have a great storage of these vinyl records. I hunt for them all the time.
They're out there. All right, thanks.
But then again, my stereo system is a classic Pioneer 1978 powerhouse. The neighbors hate it.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Eris, do you have any favorite podcasts you'd like to share?
Well, I listen to This Week in Linux from Michael every now and then. I also listen to Security Now and the Joe Rogan Experience whenever he has an interesting guest. If anybody has never caught anything and likes like edutainment content, I would highly recommend the Neil deGrasse Tyson interviews. They're really interesting. The time just flies by when he talks during those. I think there's like 4. I've listened to the first 3. I haven't listened to the latest one that came out recently. And Linux Spotlight, waiting for the host to be interviewed.
One of these
Be
days.
waiting.
One of these days. We're going to force him to do it. We're going to have an intervention.
Yep.
And that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Derek, do you listen to podcasts by any chance?
I do. I listen to a lot of a wide variety, but I'm going to leave the Linux ones off. I listen to the Patrick Madrid show on the podcast app. And I also listen to Drew Mariani, which is they're both Catholic podcasts. And I listen to one called a Bipolar Schizophrenic and a Podcast, which is a mental health one, which is pretty interesting. But there's a lot of other ones, but I don't have time to list them all.
Yep. All right, Vash. Sir, you have podcasts you listen to?
I tend to have a decent amount of podcasts that I actually listen to, but they're mostly just to kind of filter out background noise at work when I'm working. So I'll tend to not really be listening to them a whole lot just to try to keep me from getting distracted from something else. So a few that I do really try to pay more attention to, Destination Linux, Baseball Tonight. I will sometimes listen to that. It just depends on what they actually have on it. And I'm trying to think of anything else. I need to find some a couple more, but that's and I'll try to hop into Tux Digital streams when he's doing that, just to mess with him a little bit. But that tends to be most of the ones that I'm really paying attention to all that much.
Nice, very nice, Bill.
Yeah, I've got a couple podcasts. The first one is Ubuntu Podcasts. Obviously, there's a lot of people that we know that are on that. I think it's very good, even if you don't use the Ubuntu product. I want to really recommend the Ubuntu Security Podcast. Joe and Alex from Canonical are on that, and a lot of people don't really listen to it. The first half, they go over all the CVEs of the week, and the second, they discuss like an in-depth security topic. It's really great. On security, Darknet Diaries. It's one of the, I think it's really well done. I think Jack Reciter, I always get his name, pronounce his name wrong, does an awesome presentation. TechSnap is also awesome. Jim and Wes do a great job. On a non-IT side, I really like, it's called Walking the Floor with Chris Shiflett. He's the Foo Fighters guitarist, and he interviews a lot of different people, mostly Americana / Texas Red Dirt country artists. And it's a great podcast if you're into any kind of music. And obviously you have an incredibly talented musician doing the hosting. So there's a bunch more. I use it for background music, or background listening for a lot of things. But those are ones that I really like.
Well, I think we need to make a discourse post and have a master list of all. I think people would benefit from that. I have on my list Bad Voltage as one of my favorite podcasts. They don't release as much as they used to, but them three guys are amazing at drawing you into the conversation, regardless whether or not you care about the topic that they're talking about. They have such a gel and such a cohesion together. I love listening to that podcast, and it doesn't matter if I even care about it. So that's definitely one I would recommend checking out. And the other ones that I have on my list are pretty much what everybody else has suggested. Ubuntu podcast, Linux for Everyone is pretty much awesome. Linux Lads, and I have more than 5. Linux Gamecast is another one, which is a YouTube video, but it's also in podcast form, which is has a lot of information in it, and yet the delivery of it is really well done. So that's enjoyable to watch. Choose Linux, Linux Unplugged, Destination Linux, and the list goes on and on. So, but Vince, what do you have on your podcast list?
Right. So, I mean, I never really listened to podcasts until I started getting into Linux. So most of mine are actually Linux related. So, and they're all going to be very similar to the list that most people here have, except for probably one, but it actually still is related, and that's School of Hard Knocks. It's Noah's podcast, and I really enjoyed the first episode. There's only one so far, but there's another one coming soon, where he was planning to discuss some pretty hard-hitting issues, and I think that's needed and very valuable for people to listen to. But yeah, most of my other ones are Linux related. They've already been mentioned. Destination Linux. I'm looking at my phone now to see. Ubuntu podcast. One that I really like as well related to that is User Error. It's Popey and a couple other guys chatting briefly about techie stuff, but also about completely random stuff. So one of the recent episodes,
a lot of it is completely random.
One of the recent episodes I listened to was the question was raised: top bunk or bottom bunk? And they had a whole 10-minute discussion about that. It's hilarious. Of course, there's Cubicle Nate's Noodlings. I think that's fantastic as well. And I got to find out what his that intro music is, because I had that stuck in my head one day at work, and I was just humming it to myself, and people were wondering you're strange, Vince. But my all-time favorite podcast has got to be Linux Spotlight. I mean, being fairly new to the community, it's just been fantastic getting to know all the different personalities around, and it's just great that you get to know them just beyond what you see in chat, beyond what you see on the screen, in their own channels. I think it's just fantastic. So keep that up, Rocco. I really love that.
Thanks, man. Chris, sir.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, just started typing a message in the Zoom chat. You called on me. I don't have anything that I regularly listen to, and what I do listen to is probably just so far out there that you guys are going to think, why did we even let this guy into the community? Uh, but basically, when I was trying to look for ways to improve my gameplay on World of Warcraft and stuff like that, I started searching for people who were doing things, and I came across a guy named Jesse Cox, and he and Eric Krendor do a podcast. I think once a month or something like that. I don't even know what the regular schedule is anymore, which is behind a paywall, but one on Patreon. But then after I think a month, they release the audio on YouTube for free. So generally, I listen to that, and it's just basically news of the weird almost. It's fun stuff, you know, and just they basically try to make each other laugh, and it's fun stuff with it. The other one has always been the Co-optional podcast, uh, which was run by John Bain, rest in peace, and has been taken over by his wife. And she's turned it into her own show. I haven't watched it much, so I can't say how successful it's become. And the third one was always the Rooster Teeth podcast, but I've dropped off of that for the past couple of years, and with the problems that Rooster Teeth is having right now, I probably not even going to continue with my subscription to them. But those were the only three that I can come up with, other than a broadcast, radio broadcast type of podcast called Tab Computers with WTIC, or WTIC with Tab Computers, something like that, which you can pick up on the stream from the WTIC AM website. And so you could do it as a podcast there, and they usually have some really good stuff, mostly Windows based, but you know, I don't fault them for that. They still have good IT, especially for consumer and stuff like that. And then they also host a website that has all the links that they talk about during the show. So if you want to find out more about Black Ice, or you want to find out more about um, some other thing that they're talking about, you can go out to their website on the radio station's website and click on those links and know that you're getting to the proper place.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. And hopefully I don't disappear again.
You froze completely.
I don't know what happened there. I may have to update that Zoom after all.
Right.
Paul, you got a list of podcasts for us?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. One of my favorites is Science Friday on NPR. Sometimes if I miss it, I can always replay it. And, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I love that one. Star Talk. The Bill Burr podcast, he's pretty funny. I listen to him. One of my favorites is the Relic Radio. It's just a bunch of old time, stories, and they do all the sound effects. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Adam, you got a list?
Man, I had to sit here and look at my phone. I got so many podcasts to listen to. I don't even. Anyway.
You got a top 5?
That's
yeah,
that's tough. That's
first,
tough.
There's like the Linux stuff, right? The one Linux podcast no one's mentioned was Late Night Linux
Mhm.
that Joe Resington and other folks do. I enjoy that. As far as non-Linux stuff goes, there's a podcast called Judge Joe Hodgman, John Hodgman rather. Sorry, Judge John Hodgman. He's the guy who played PC in the Mac and PC ads back in the day.
Okay.
But he basically does takes like random people's arguments from the internet and like acts as a judge between them. It's pretty entertaining. He's a really funny guy. I listen to Windows Weekly. Yeah, I do.
It's not terrible.
I've been listening to that for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple shows on the Relay FM network that are primarily Apple related. Adapt and Mac Power Users are both two of my favorites from there. Listen to the H3 podcast. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Let me look. The Ubuntu podcast is pretty good. I listened to they haven't done one in a while, but there was a podcast from The Verge called "Why'd You Push That Button?" It was just like discussing like the kind of psychology and stuff around social media and other technology topics. I listened to a couple of gaming ones. Linux Gamecast is one of them. I listened to Podcast Unlocked for some Xbox stuff, but I listen to a ton of stuff, man. It's crazy.
That's a good list.
And some non-safe for work stuff. So yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. That's cool. Colin, have you got a list of podcasts that you listen to?
Wow. Well, not really. I'm a very random person, to be honest, but I will listen to anything Linux related if I got the time. But my missus does have a TV with YouTube on it, and we watch. Because I'll mention the ones outside of Linux, because I'll just watch anything that's Linux pretty much, just like Barb. I think the wife watches the one that you said, Barb, True Crime, but I think she also watches Criminal Minds, and also 48 Hours is a very good watch as well. That she watches all that stuff. We also like to watch people get their just desserts, so watch Judge Judy.
Oh, God.
She's quite good to watch sometimes. And then pretty much I like to watch any random video that YouTube throws at me, because sometimes that can be just interesting.
Oh, one I forgot is called Case File, and the guy who does it is Australian.
Okay, Case File.
Case File. That's also really good.
Okay,
I forgot about that one.
Look at that one. All right, yeah.
Bill.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Colin.
Sorry. No, that's fine. I'm just blabbering pretty much.
Bill, you have your hand up?
Oh, before we finished up, I just wanted to say for like podcasts, I have to do an honorable mention for Joe Ressington. Anything Joe does, I will listen to. If Joe read like grocery lists or list off of ingredients, I would listen to it. I just enjoy everything Joe does. Really, wow. I'm serious, not being like sarcastic. Awesome stuff he does.
Wow. Okay, there you go. Joe, speaking of Joe, do you listen to podcasts, brother?
The only, if you want to call it quote unquote podcast, that I probably listen to still on occasion is Jupiter Broadcasting stuff. But most of what I listen to is the video stuff in the form of podcasts, which is just about everybody here that has a channel I listen to it some way or another. Especially if I'm not in the chat with them, I like to listen to, especially if I'm doing book work or I'm working on something else. I will actually put you guys up, because I'm like some of the others in here. I like to see some of the reactions or some of the things that are being shared or whatever. If I had to say favorites, I don't know that I have a lot. God, the list of that's still too long, but I do really enjoy the Spotlight. And I think one of the reasons why I like the Linux Spotlight, like a lot of people, is, just like when you and Rob started Destination Linux, and I said this before, you guys are just so easygoing, smooth, easy listening. There's no, it's not a drama thing. It's right down to earth, quality stuff. And what I enjoy most is I'm learning about the people that I'm sitting with every week here. Destination Linux, Michael, God, if you want to have your whole day taken up, that's the guy to listen to, because, his 4 and 5 hours.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, but it's really it's even though we pick on him a lot, he's got some really great stuff that he goes through. I love listening to Derek. Steve's really starting to do a great job with his live chats and stuff. I mean, all you guys here. So primarily, if I had to say, I favorite more Linux. I do follow a lot of tech side things too. Like I listen to Level 1 Tech, Wendell, which he also has Level 1 Linux. Linus Tech Tips, everybody knows about him. I do listen to his stuff, and things like that. So I listen to a lot of tech related. I also listen to, because it's a passion of mine, is a lot of diecast restorers type videos. I like to watch them because I see what they do, but sometimes I can't always watch. So I still like to listen to what they're doing with them, because I'm kind of going back to my youth a little bit, with the Hot Wheels and that kind of stuff. I do collect them again. I buy and sell them and that kind of thing, but it brought me back to my time when I was a kid and I had them as a kid. So I mean, I could start, as long as you can start doing the discourse thing, I could put some lists together. I used to, when I was in business, as far as with contracting, I used to listen to, I don't know if he's around anymore, but Bruce Williams used to have a show called In Business for Yourself at night. I used to love to lay down at night and listen to him, because he would basically encourage entrepreneurship, whether it was you were somebody up and coming or somebody that was already established. He had so much insight to different things and how to really work and promote yourself in business. And then as a builder, I used to listen to a lot of that different things too. But in today's world, I have to say these are my top favorites right here. You guys, and Colin's got some really great videos he puts out too. And a lot of it too is because I still look at myself where Linux is concerned as I'm still ever learning. And if I could pick up anything that I need to know with this, or, a lot of times I'm not even planning on it. And all of a sudden something we mention, I go, oh man, that's how you take care of that. And I'll go, and then I break something and I fix it. So, but yeah, so I apologize for not being prepared with the list, so to speak. You hear how quiet it is now? Because I didn't know if I was even going to be here. But anyway, that's where I'm at.
It's a good point, because I mean, by now there is a podcast for just about any kind of general interest, and not just some random podcast, but like generally pretty well put together, thought out podcasts. And so, I mean, obviously this group, and we're technology focused or Linux focused, but yeah, there's just anything you can think of, general entertainment. I mean, it's an obvious statement to say, but at this point, like, if it's almost hard not to find something to fill that need. So it is amazing. And the tools that are available, and it's the barrier to entry for something like that has come down so far that people who might have been afraid to do a podcast in the past, you're getting good quality people that are willing to do that now. So it's great. It is. It's amazing.
And the hard part about this too, Eric, is like even you with stuff you're putting out, it's hard to go down a list over here and hope you don't forget anybody, because I truly do listen to just about everybody here that's got a channel, in some way or form.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Steve, you're last on the list, sir. Are you a podcast fan?
A podcast, like downloading and listening to podcasts. No, I mean, I work 10 minutes from home. I'm not going to get any podcasts in that. But I mean, as far as YouTube, I mean, was said, anything Linux, everybody here in the room, I have a list on, that I usually post on my channel, when I post a video, and most everybody's included. I got to add some new guys like you, Eric, and now Sleepy, get him up there. But I watch a lot of other stuff on YouTube. I love Linux, but sometimes I just want something different. And I've been finding lately, I've been watching a lot of Katie Sackhoff. She does like blogs. I love her, from Battlestar Galactica and Longmire. She's hilarious to watch. She's kind of down to earth for an actress in that. But she's been doing some great podcasts on health and things like that. There's two outdoor adventure like I watch. One guy, one's called Matthew Post's Adventures, and he's kind of like this goofy Canadian that goes camping in the middle of winter, and it's like just basically sleeping out in the snow with a little hutch and his collie. And they can be kind of long, but they're kind of humorous and that. And then there's another one. It's called Alexa Outdoors. This young lady, another outdoor camping and that. I really like watching. She's got this dog she calls Grizz. His nickname, that's his nickname, is Grizzly Bear. Beautiful little dog. You would think it's like a miniature German Shepherd, but it's kind of a mix. I watch Emergency Awesome. With Charlie, he does a lot of, your superhero stuff, your Star Wars stuff. He puts out a couple of videos a day, many a week. He's really good to watch if you're into those and see what, like, get up to date on your superheroes and such like that. And then I just bounce around on YouTube, trying to find something that Simon Dan, because he kind of like tries to dispute flat earthers, which just boggles my mind. And I got caught up in that. So those are some of the ones I watch outside of Linux.
Well, Steve, you mentioned that you don't you work close to home. So before, I had like an hour drive to work and then an hour drive home. So I had tons of time to listen to podcasts. I could wipe out my list and now I work like 2 minutes from home. So it's like, it's cool to work that close to home, but the time for listening to podcasts is not there as it used to be.
Yeah, that and barely warming up your car in the winter, It's
Yep.
like you get to work and it's like, okay, I don't want to get out.
All right, that's our list of podcasts. Like I said, I'm going to try to make a master list and hopefully post it in Discourse, and hopefully with links to all of them. Well, I mean, I don't even know if you need links because the podcast apps that the phone have are so good that they pick up just by searching. So we'll at least have a master list of the names.
Yep.
But moving on, there is something that I would like to talk about because I want everybody's opinion on this. And this is something that Adam and I were discussing earlier in the week. And it has to do with distro hopping, and it has to do with what we're looking for when we're distro hopping. So, Adam, tell us, what were we discussing?
Okay, so most of this is actually also a discussion that I've had with Eric as well about just this. Yeah, I'm bringing you in.
I wouldn't even call it a discussion. It's just an ongoing
It was
mind.
like, yeah, this like stream of consciousness of like a collective crisis here. But so Eric and I have done an unhealthy amount of distro hopping lately. I like very unhealthy. I think my USB stick is failing. It's and I kind of had to think about like, why am I doing this, right? Like I spent so much time doing this that I haven't really done anything outside of work, obviously. But like at home, like I haven't really done anything interesting or productive or anything because I've just been kind of spinning my wheels with distros, right? So I had this kind of idea, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is it that motivated me to wipe out a distro numerous times? And to give you a number, over the last year, I went to my Firefox account and looked at how many devices I had connected. It was roughly 60. So that's 60 different Firefox installs. That's roughly 5 distros a month. So yeah, why do I do this to myself, right? And I had to think personally. Now I can't account for everybody, obviously. We all have our own reasons. But like for me, there was sort of this lingering like chase, like this chase for something that doesn't exist, right? Like I'm looking for an experience that I'm not going to find. Like, for example, I want rolling, but I want stable, or I want, I want the latest software, but I want something that is more static, or just a distro that doesn't exist, right? And
But the next one will be.
Yeah, of course. Right? Exactly.
You're not helping, Rocco.
and then you have
more than likely it won't be.
More than likely. But then you have the issues of like, well, okay, I go onto this distro, it's got plasma, and if it's a good experience, this and that, but there's like some little thing that just bothers me to no end, and I have to abandon it, and then I go back to GNOME and I go back to this and that. I can't use this because it doesn't have high DPI, and just all these different things. And ultimately what I decided was the problem isn't Linux, the problem is me. Like, it's not you, it's me. And so I had to kind of like take a step back and think, what is it that that I need to solve for myself, and choose something that does that, right? So you're always, at least for me, I was always chasing this idea of just this thing that doesn't exist, and I'll never be happy because that was something I mentioned to Eric several times. Is like, why can't I just like be happy, right? Like that's the frustration, and ultimately it's a matter of expectation, right? Because in my case, I have to kind of temper the fact that, like, okay, if you want something that's usable and reliable, you're probably not going to get the latest stuff, or not the bleeding edge, right? Or if you want something that's new, you're probably not going to have a static release or anything like that. And so I think kind of the cure in my case for distro hopping is largely a personal one. And there's no distro that's going to solve your problems. There's no pill that'll solve your problems, right? Like, you have to solve your problems internally and then adapt for that. So I wasn't sure if anybody else like felt the same way, like for those of you who either distro hop a lot or have in the past, or how you've kind of resolved those inner demons of sorts.
I think it's a great conversation because I do feel the same way. I think you get on a distro, and you're right. You're trying to find something really that's not there, but you'll find that every distro has something that you want, but you can't have everything in the one distro because it just doesn't work that way. And I think you're trying to chase that dream, and I think you're right, and that's what it's all about. I
think
feel that.
You definitely have to like look in yourself, so to speak. And
Hi, my name's Rocco, and I'm a distro hopper.
Yeah, exactly right.
Adam, actually, I'm not a distro hopper, but I can understand where you're coming from, because you're looking and looking and looking. You're never going to find the ultimate perfect distro. You have to find the one that fits you the best, and then you can tweak it to do what for those newer programs and stuff like that. I mean, to me, my idea is that a distro is something that I want it to work. It's got to be able to run certain programs and do certain things. And then I don't want to keep changing all the time. It's such a waste of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want to be able to use my computer to do stuff. And if I'm constantly changing distros, I'm not doing anything.
At some point, you're going to have to make decisions that may look like compromises as far as what you're looking for in a distro, because as we've all said, there is no perfect distro. And as much as KDE has some great new innovative features, it has some issues or I have issues with it. GNOME is the same way. XFCE is the same way. They all have great points about them. Mate is another one that's the same exact way. But, if I'm running KDE, I feel like I'm running the latest stuff. It's like, and then it drives me insane. Okay? And if I'm running GNOME, I feel like I'm running the latest stuff, but I can't always control it as much as I want to. If I'm running XFCE, it's great. It works. It's awesome, except I don't have the great new shiny features that KDE and GNOME have. And it's this constant snowball thing that at some point you just have to say, this is what I'm going to because even, and there'll be some people out there, and Steve, I hate to pick on you, but I mean, who will say, oh, just run this distro and it's perfect. It may be perfect for you, but for each individual, it may not be. So you're at some point, you're just going to have to say, this is what I want.
You have to temper the idea of the shiny stuff syndrome. Like, especially for someone who like me, who has, too much time on their hands, and I sit there and I'll browse, Linux subreddits and look at Linux sites and like, oh, this new release or that new release, and look at these features and that bug fix and all. And then it's like you get this idea of either I want the new stuff just because I want new stuff, and there's also the idea of like fear of missing out, like, oh,
Yeah.
like I'm missing, like, look at all these great new features I'm missing out on. And then realistically, it's like, how many of those do you use, right? But
I want to elaborate. I'd like to elaborate on that because I think technology is also moving a lot faster than what it used to. And every time you get onto a long-term support and you think, oh, I think I'll just stick with that. And then you see that, maybe LibreOffice has updated all this stuff and it's got all this stuff in it and someone else has updated. Kden Live's got the newest and whatever. But I think if you really think about it, snaps and flat packs are probably one of the things that can get you away from that, because you can update to the latest with those rather than relying on the distros repos themselves, which is what I'm starting to see is happening now.
Well, I think it goes further, Colin, that you have the it goes further than just programs. It's the system itself too. And I'll bring up KDE and GNOME for an example. Like if you're running KDE, it's one of the greatest features for me is I can hide anything in that system tree that I want. I can customize that to where I only need to see what I want to see. And yet in GNOME, you have to suffer with maybe sometimes not even having applets in the system tray sometimes, unless you put an extension on. So it's like, it's not just apps, it's the system itself that you have to at some point be satisfied with.
Yes.
I think that's the same thing when it comes back to, I almost feel like with running Mint now, I've run Ubuntu Studio, I've run Mate, I've run a bunch of them, and I started going through the Hopper stage too for a while. And I really have gotten settled on this because it's the feel that I most like. And I almost feel sometimes like, I don't want to say embarrassed, but Mint, I don't think gets the due that it's supposed to. Everybody looks at it as for new users, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I disagree with that. And the funny thing is when I always say breaking stuff, the last thing that I did to this was I messed up my session where it wouldn't boot in, and I did figure out how to fix it. And I was so glad when I got it back, because I thought, my God, I don't want to start all over again, setting things up and reinstalling and whatever. And then there's sometimes when you get the bug to do that. But if we've learned nothing else, you stick with your main system that you're, like you said, that you're most happy with, and kind of leave that alone. And we've all got multiple systems to play with. I do like Peppermint. I've got that on my other machine. So those are my two. You've heard that like a broken record lately too. And I think honestly, even with the distro challenges, I always put them into a VM first to see if it's something that interests me. But I'm finding myself having a harder and harder time to want to be, as Adam just said, wearing out my hardware with the stuff. I mean, I'd almost rather have, in one breath, I think what we do is phenomenal, because I do think the beauty of it is so many times you say these distro creators can't tell what they need because there's so many different machines out there that have so many different instances, that have so many different hiccups or whatever, where if we come together, we can help with that stuff with our experiences. But then the other side of the coin, it almost makes you wonder, do you wait for them to request stuff too? The beauty of Linux, though, if you listen to what everybody's saying here, and it's very, very true, you won't find this on Windows or Mac. You're always striving to find that little bit better, that little bit extra, that little bit more. It's like this excitement of like Christmas Day. You always want to find a new gift under the tree, and I think that's something to be said for Linux and how far it's come and how wonderful it is. And when you listen to all the problems that are happening with Windows, even again recently with their issues that they just issued another warning a couple of days ago. I mean, I feel like I could get on here and not, truthfully, there was a time you didn't say that, but I really feel like I don't have to worry about jumping on my machine and having something going wrong with it unless I create it usually.
Dave, you got your hand up?
Yes. I actually was hopping madly for a couple years, too many years. But about a year and a half ago, I finally settled in and realized that, I kept going back and forth between rolling and static releases and rolling and semi-rolling. And I realized that as a core system, I wanted rolling. And so at this point, Arch or OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, either one is perfectly fine. I don't so much hop distros anymore, but what I find myself now is I'm getting the urge to start going through the desktop environments and the window managers to find the UI that suits the underlying system. I kind of have settled, but now it's the UI experience that is starting to pull me around the different areas, to check out like Budgie and Deepen and Hubsluft window manager and i3 and Awesome and all those different things, to find out which of them suits me best. So it's strange that I don't necessarily distro hop, but I desktop environment hop now.
Yep.
Yeah, as Eric pointed out in the YouTube chat, most distros are extremely good. I guess that's ultimately the problem, right? Like if Linux overall wasn't that good, then and there were only like a couple good choices, then it wouldn't be that hard of a choice. We wouldn't
Right.
hop, right? But like most of them are pretty darn good these days, and so it becomes the little things, right? It becomes the things like that get in the way.
Chris, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Let's see. Am I unmuted?
No, you're good.
Yes, I am. Oh, okay. Well, the thing that I've seen with distro hopping, and I haven't really gotten into it far as any kind of daily driver. I have a different one each week or what have you. I've always gone back to Fedora. And as far as my production machines in the museum, I've always used Fedora, which is, I know it's crazy because you're not supposed to use Fedora on production machines, but hey, I do, and it seems to work fine, basically because my users ignore me anyway and bring in their own laptops. But I mean, that's what I have the separate hardware for, is the fact that I can use that as a test bed. I can see what's out there. I mean, things like Netrunner and Salient and a couple other ones that I really liked. I never would have picked up on if we hadn't done the challenges and me doing the distro hopping in between there. And so now I'm getting a better flavor of what I like, and also finding out how I can make Fedora do things like that. And that's the main thing, is one of the beauty things about Linux in general is the fact that you can configure it to a way where it is your perfect system. And like what I was saying about Plaza earlier tonight, was the fact that it's highly configurable. There's some things that need to be worked out, but I mean, you can make Plasma look almost like anything that you want it to. And so, it comes down to almost brand loyalty, if there is any such thing.
Dan, Kelly, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'll make this kind of short. I hopped around for quite a while after I first got into Linux with Mint, and then I wanted to see what was out there. And after I went through and looked at a lot of distros and stuff like that, I settled on what I really needed in a distro. And all I needed was a panel that was fully loaded with features, a menu that popped up so I can start my software, and a file manager. Everything else that was in the distro is considered to be bling. So, that's where I stopped with that.
Right.
I use the distro challenges that we do to do my distro hopping. And what I do with that, when we settle on something, I download it, I look at it in a VM. If I get some kind of wow factor, then I'll put it on a drive and stick it in the machine and try and live on it for a week and take it apart and look under the hood and everything else. But Yeah, I'm not going to go changing my stuff anymore because it's just the distro challenges are good enough for me.
So Chris had mentioned, having the other hardware to do things on. I think that would immediately stop distro hopping entirely for me if I only had one computer and the risk of messing that thing up was so great that I wouldn't have a machine to recover it
Yep.
from.
Yeah,
Now I
that's
have
right.
other machines I can remake a USB or something, if I need to or whatever. But if all I had was just that one machine, yeah, I'd probably just load something on and just leave it.
Adam, I use
That
one
that
machine.
never stopped me.
Adam, I have one machine, but I have lots of hard drives.
Oh, okay.
Aris, you had your hand up earlier.
Oh, yeah. When I started out in Linux, I was pretty much in Ubuntu the whole time, and going through different flavors. And recently, I went to Debian, and I've been Debian for a few months, and I'm actually about to transfer over. I think, just because of the font rendering on KDE, for the version that's on Debian, it's not as good as the new version, and I think this will push me to move over. I'm guessing
It won't
to
satisfy. Trust me.
because that's the only thing. Like, I have Debian and I have all these old packages, but I use Flatpak and Snaps for everything, and I don't need the rolling distro for the most part. But the font rendering will push me, I think, to OpenSUSE.
Software
Just to
is the
try it
whole
out,
point.
and then I'll probably settle back on Kubuntu if I don't like SUSE.
All right, Vince.
Oh, sorry. Fight it out.
Trying to get to everybody that has their hand up. So Vince, go
I'll be
ahead.
quick. I think it's fair to say that everybody here, and probably the Linux community in general, have this really big thirst for knowledge, and that's why, trying new things out, keeping up to date with what's happening with new developments, just sort of is attractive to us. But I think that, for new users especially who are out there listening, one of the best bits of advice that I got when I was first starting was to pick a distro that seems to work well for you, and then go about learning how to make it work even better for you. And I think that's really worked well for me. So, in the 18 months or so I've been in Linux, I've only really ever used two distros, and that was Linux Mint and now Arco. And then, I've gone the other way, as opposed to Adam wanting only one machine. I feel like I'm acquiring more machines to test stuff out on, because I just love learning about this stuff. So, I think coming to be at peace with the fact that that's who we are, and we have this thirst for knowledge, I think is okay as well. So,
Yep.
you be you.
Yep.
See, and I'm kind of in a weird spot because at this point I still don't really have a super strong list of what I absolutely have to have. The basic things generally are fine for what I'm trying to do. So, on this machine I have Kubuntu. On another machine I have sitting over here, I have Manjaro with KDE. And then the Pinebook Pro, which I haven't got to mess with yet, I've left it on the default Mate install for that. And then on one laptop I have Cinnamon with the Mint, and I can go and use them all. I don't really have anything. There's a couple things probably in the AUR that I've found that were easier to get there than it would be maybe if I had to build it from source in another distro. But ultimately, so far I don't really have anything super specific, and my workflow the only thing that I can't really get to cooperate very much is XFCE because of the way I always use the super key and type in whatever I'm trying to find in the menu, and that just doesn't work as well on KDE or XFCE due to the way the shortcuts work.
Well, I hate to end the conversation, but we do have to go. But before we go, I want to get the distro hopper, the picture, when you see the dictionary for distro hopper, Tony's picture comes up. Tony, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I started off 18 months, just over 18 months ago on Linux, and I couldn't stop distro hopping. I think originally I was looking for the perfect distro. And after about 9 months, I realized that it doesn't exist, and I'm never going to find it. And then I found half a dozen or so that I really like, and then I'd switch regular. Within a week, I might go through all the half a dozen and come back to the first one again. And I thought, what am I doing? This doesn't work either. Now, I did hop after a couple of days from one distro, and I'm now running Kubuntu 1910. And that's working well, but I bet within a couple of days I'll hop again. I just can't seem to stick to one distro. I just can't, and I don't know why. With having used Windows 10 and having used Mac, you don't get a choice. You get it, you customize it to what you can do, and you have no choice. But there's just so much choice here that there's too much choice, really. I probably need to see somebody about it and sit and have a chat with someone.
It sounds like you're still in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, I think that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
But how long does it go on for?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, especially with doing the Linux spotlights and talking to people all around Linux, you see it as a constant theme that people start out at when they first get to Linux. Most people will distro hop. There are exceptions to that, but most people will distro hop looking for that perfect system. And after a while, some people go, 6 months, some people years, some people go 2 years, whatever. But at some point, everybody stops distro hopping and just settles on a distro.
Are you
Tony,
sure?
I'm
'Cause
sorry.
it's been more than 20 years for me, and I'm still doing it.
Dave, stop.
Please don't tell me that. I don't.
I'm trying to convince people it's going to be okay, Dave, and you're not helping.
Yeah, they don't make a pill for this.
Yeah, it's pushing close to between 30 and 35 years.
At least. I mentioned the Vince earlier in the chat room. We're all enablers.
All right, we are way over time, so everybody gets the last word. Eric.
All right, my last word, because I didn't get to go for this, is I've been doing this long enough that pre-USB, remember those 100 CDR spindles?
Yes.
I blew through those on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Downloading distros, burning them. I had every version of everything. I had boxes of them in my closet. So this reaches back a long way for me. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So like Adam said, I think it just comes down to, so my way around this, the way I stop myself from causing trouble is Kubuntu is on one partition, and then whatever fun one I'm playing with is on the other one. And so no matter what happens, I can go back into Kubuntu and just get my work done if I need to. So anyway, with that, great to see everybody. Thank you for letting me participate. As always, Rocco, I appreciate what you do. And the guys at Netrunner, I will get in there and dig around and look a little more. And I'm not trying to dismiss it simply because of my fickle ways of distro hopping, because your theme bothered me. So anyway, good night, everybody.
Well, I will add to your last word that I stopped distro hopping sort of the same way by putting Pop! OS on this main machine and distro hopping on that machine. Matter. I don't know if that's actually stopping or not. Tony, last word.
No, it's not that really the fix.
Tony, last word.
Thanks for doing this, Rocco. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Interesting conversation this week. As far as the distro hopping, just to finalise, when Dave said about it goes on 20 or 30 years, look on the bright side. I'm too old to be going on for 20 or 30 years. It will come to an end naturally. So if that's all I've got to look forward to, then so be it.
Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dan. Thank you to the devs of Netrunner. It's a really nice distro, and I look forward to getting it on hard metal. And Tony, there are far worse ways to go.
Dan Kelly, last word.
Eric, did you take a look at that link that I sent to you so you could put that in Discords?
I did. It's in there already. Yep.
I want that to help a lot of people. I went through a lot of trouble to find that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I did. Rocco, great show. I love being here. I like all you guys. I consider you my friends. And till next week, or we see you on another show this week. Take care.
Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. Even though I said I'm leaving Debian, I am really sad to leave Debian. I really love Debian. I installed this minimal plasma that I set up myself, and I really don't want to move, but the fun is just going to push me over, and I'm sad about that.
Derek.
Oh, thank you again for another great week. Really not much going on here, but I just want to say you guys have a good week and see you next week.
Bash, last word.
Low latency kernel. And thanks for the stream.
And single click.
For the win. Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Dan and Eric. I just want to thank everybody on the Ubuntu side for all the work they did, and I want to do a shout out to everyone that I work with on the Ubuntu Mate team and all the great work that they do.
Very nice. Vince, last word.
Thank you again, Rocco, for the admission to this esteemed community. And thanks, Eric and Dan, and also Zeb, who is missing, for all their behind-the-scenes work as well. This is a fantastic show and a great community. I'm loving it more and more each week. Thank you, guys.
Chris, last word.
This is a lot better than the 32 3 1/4 floppy drives, where you had to use those to install Office, and on disk 22 you get an error and all of a sudden your entire stack is gone. Other than that, as always, I just enjoy being here. I enjoy sitting in the background and being part of it, and being up with the cool kids table here, and being able to talk with people in the chat. Even though I don't do that very often, I still appreciate them being there. Although, come on, we were at 102 earlier tonight, and we only have 10 likes. Come on, guys, let's pump up those likes, get the YouTube algorithm working, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Paul, last word.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for all the hard work you do on the discourse and the website and all that. It's great fun as always, and we'll see you next week. I did see that Netrunner has an ARM version, so maybe I'll try that on my little Raspberry Pi.
Very nice. All right. Adam, I think Chris was referring to you when he said being with the cool kids. So last word.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rocco. Thanks everybody who works on this. Dan, Eric, everybody. It's a good time. Just for the record, I ended up falling on Debian, so I'm hoping to stay there for quite a while. So we'll see. Thank you, guys.
Colin, last word.
Okay. To start with, we're just going to look up D under D, Tony. Distro Hoppers Anonymous. Oh, geez, what do I do with that phone number? No, it's a great topic of conversation tonight, and this just could have gone on and on. To be honest,
There's
so many reasons why we do this, and I think I would like to continue this if we can, because next week, if it's possible, if we get time, because I think it's a great conversation. There are so many reasons why we all do this. Number one, we have a problem, but.
The first is admitting
anyway,
we have a problem, Colin.
Speak for yourself.
It's only a problem if you get caught.
Anyway, great show. Thanks, Rocco and Dan and Eric, for your efforts, and I hope Zeb's having a great time at what Pseudo calls egg camp. So see you all next week, and take care.
Colin, remind me next week, because I might forget about it, but we can definitely bring this up again.
Sure, no worries.
Joe, last word.
I didn't do like everybody else, go up in my cabinet. I've got 2 sets of stacks in there of 64 and 32-bit disks, and a lot of those came from when I had 50-something computers at the house that I was trying to keep out of the recycling world out there, and I was able to put Linux on a lot of them. And interestingly enough, it's not just about trying the distros itself, but it's matching up, the distro, not only the one that you like, but the one that works with the hardware that you have. Because that's the other beauty of this too, is you can actually pick a distro that will run cleaner or better on a particular machine, and you can't do that with other ones. And a little tip, I may have mentioned it before, when I did the 2012 MacBook Pro of my son's, the only way I was able to get Mint on there was using a DVD. It wouldn't accept it through a flash drive. So anybody wants to put Linux on a MacBook and having trouble with a flash drive, there's a tip for you. But thank you again for a wonderful show this week, and look forward to seeing you guys again.
Dan, last word.
Oh, thanks, Rocco. As always, and I want to echo some of what Bill said. Thanks to the Ubuntu devs for another release, and my teammates. It's been a great week, and thanks to Netrunner. I'll be checking that out this week and get some feedback.
And congratulations again to Dan.
Thanks, everybody.
Agreed.
Yeah, congratulations, Dan.
Yep. Steve, last word.
Thanks to this great community. It's always a pleasure to be part of it. Rocco, you hit it every time you do the spotlight and talk about the community. It is a great ongoing thing, and I was a bit tired tonight and debating about coming on, and I'm always glad that I do. So thank you, and thank you all.
All right. That is going to wrap it up for us. We tried Netrunner. Thank you to the devs for doing what you do with Netrunner. We will give it the rest of the week to continue trying, and we'll give our final thoughts next week. Thank you to the Ubuntu team for putting out 1910. Everybody that's involved with Ubuntu, thank you very much for all of the hard work, getting it out for the release. We will be trying it, just so you know. We will be trying it very soon. And if you haven't seen the latest Linux Spotlight, you need to go watch it, because Jill was an absolute awesome guest.
Oh my God, infectious.
Yes. I mean, her passion and her just joy for running Linux is infectious. So
absolutely,
you definitely got to go see that episode. This coming Wednesday, I interviewed a guy whose name is Michael Hall, and he was a community manager for community advocate manager, developer advocate for Canonical. He worked for Endless OS, and he now works for a project for the Linux Foundation. And I talked to him, and we had a nice chat. So that will air Wednesday. Check that out. And that's all we got.
Awesome.
So until next week, long live Linux.
Long live Linux, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Later.